Countdown.
Bang, bang, Facebook. Good morning. What's going on? It is Sunday, fun day. You know what that means. Forbes Anonymous, my beautiful self, and Sammy's big-headed ass. Yeah, we'll get him in here in 1 second. How's everybody doing today, man? It's been a long week, but a great week. Things progress as they go. Healing. Look, I can move. Oh my goodness! Look at that! Morning, Amy. Getting a couple minutes in before a shower. All right, hold on. Let me bring in our second favorite. Oh, there he is. Look! Caught him yawning too. Waking up. Around.
I need a nap already.
He's been out building a farm. He's out there breaking horses in the river, roping cattle. You know how it goes. Yesterday was Amy and Amy's dad's birthday party. We had a great time, man. We went and I was supposed to go to my niece's birthday party at like an hour after I started their birthday party, and we were only going to stay for a few. We ended up staying like an extra 3 hours. It was such a great time, man. It was great, man. Her and her dad are amazing human beings. We had a great time. So happy birthday, Amy.
That's right.
And Amy's dad.
I don't see their comments coming up on the.
Yeah, I've been having a problem inside our feed. I've been having a problem.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to talk to Julie about resetting it or fixing it, because I'm having to track our comments on Facebook itself. Instead of through the platform. How you doing this morning, bro?
I'm doing good, man. It's a lazy Sunday morning. I've been busy though already. Did Amy call me a cowboy? Because that's that's a real thing.
You really a cowboy?
I need to start putting on my cowboy hat.
Whatever works, Hermano. I told, hey, you guys, he's talking about getting a mini donkey. Like, let's go. Like, it's on, man. A mini donkey, huh? Listen, bro, I told you you're gonna have to get dingleberries.
I'm not talking about that. Julie's talking about that.
You have to get dingleberries for above its hoof, and then get it a little bitty donkey sombrero. And one of the blankets that go over it, you know what I mean? That'd be perfect, bro.
Like the Peru blankets, the bright colored pink and blue.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. Go all out.
Julie found was like 22 inches tall, right? She's like, "Can you write it?" I'm like, "You can, but not regular people."
You and maybe Samaya, right?
No, Samaya's taller than me right now. Ain't no way. Her elbows would be dragging on the ground. She'd try to write.
Yeah, right. So a lot of you guys, how are you guys doing this week? Hold on. You got the comments on your side, bro? Yeah, have you able to connect to the comments?
Say again?
Are you able to see the comments now? Do you have a secondary window open?
Yeah, I've just put them over so I can see. Okay. I think your tractor is sexy. Well, yeah, well, at least one of us is sexy, so.
wait,
who's sexy? No, it's my tractor. According to Amy. Shit, we've been dealing with heat. I've been working in the heat. We've been dealing with windstorms and big storms, flooding. So it's either super dry and baked or just wet right now. We got weird weather going on right now.
Yeah, across the
But
country, we've been hitting the
yeah,
upper 90s all week in humidity, and it's been a
yeah.
little rough, man. Like,
I'm out there now though. I've learned how to kind of walk in it. You know, what's that pink thing behind you? There's something like shimmering.
it's my bed sheet that
Oh, got
I
it.
didn't make the bed today, you guys. Sorry about that, and it's interfering with my video.
It's okay. I just
It's
didn't know what
maroon, not pink. Thank you.
fuchsia.
Maroon, fuchsia,
That's
whatever.
definitely pink.
I'm still a man, damn it. Hey, Tater, hey, this last week Tater was telling me he wanted to do something his mom had told him no, right? And he came over and he whispered to me, like, he's only 4.5. He was like, Dada, you're the boss. And I'm like, what? He was like, you're the boss. I was like, the boss of what? He was like, of here. You're the boss, Dada. And I'm like, listen, bro. I said, let's get something straight real quick here, man. The
You'd be
hierarchy of
trying to
our
get me in
home.
trouble.
Nah, hey man, I said a lot. I was like, the hierarchy of our home goes like this. If you want something, you ask your mama. If your mama isn't here, you ask your titi. If your titi isn't here, you ask one of your two older sisters, and then maybe if there's no one else here, you ask me. I was like, I don't. He was like, but you're the boss. I am not the boss, bro. I am
Quit
not the boss.
saying that. Don't quit saying that.
Right. Don't get me in any more trouble than I've been in. I can't
Oh,
afford to get
God.
beat up. Like, I am not the boss of my life. That's just not how it works.
That's hilarious.
All right, you guys. Well, I don't know if you guys remember. Last week we were talking about step one. And we did an overview. I brought out the big book. We read from that. And so Sammy and I were talking today, and we're going to rehash the steps. We're not going to go as far in depth as we did prior to this because we've already made it to step 6. But we think rehashing step 2 for a few would be good. So that's what we're going to do.
Well, I was just going over it this morning. The step reads, can you enable sharing? Because then I can put it up on the screen.
Sharing should be enabled.
And let me see.
Yeah. Click present and then hit the bottom one, which is share screen.
Got it. Okay. Here we go. Let me see if I can find it. This is a weird window. Okay. Here we go. And I'm guessing it's this one. Let's see if that works. Is it showing?
Nope.
Okay. It says I got to go to system preferences.
Here, you want me to share step 2?
Yeah, why not? It might be a little faster.
All right, let me get in here and get it. I don't know how fast it's going to be. We are ill prepared this day, you guys. Sammy.
All right, let me turn it off because I don't know if that. Okay, here we go. Window. Here we go. It should work now. How's that? Still nothing?
No, I don't see anything on the screen. F-A. All right, so where do you want? 12 steps?
Page 15.
Page 15. Let's get her in here. I gotcha. For me, you want the beginning of step 2? Page 14.
Yeah, just the title.
All right. All right. Make that a little bit bigger. Bam. How's that? Bam.
That's perfect. Perfect. All right. So, came to believe that through practice of spirituality, it could restore us to sanity. Now, for those, most folks on here have been with us for a while. So, you know that when we talk about spirituality, we are not necessarily pointing to religion. And that's a critical point, because we know that a lot of folks have different views, have different understandings, have different relationships with concepts of religion. And so, one, we don't want to exclude anyone, including those folks who don't see themselves as religious at all. So, out of respect for that, we've addressed that to a degree. On the second part, we think it should be broader than just religion. So, for us, in a nutshell, we're just touching on this barely. For us, the word spirituality means feeling connected to people, places, or things, or things. So whatever you feel connected to. And so and that connection is meaningful, right? It's a meaningful relationship that you have. And it's often what you think about when you're, trying to find the reason why you want to make a change, why you want to stick with a change, why you need to do something about your problems, right? It's probably why some of us haven't committed suicide. It's probably it's probably the reason why we haven't gone back to prison. It's whatever you feel so strongly connected to that motivates you to live, to change, to struggle, to heal, to mend, to move forward, right? To love, to trust. And so whatever that is. And so for some folks, it's going to clearly be a relationship with a higher power, what have you. For others, it could be, as an example, just an example, it could be your family, your children, your relationships. It could be the place you live, the land that you visit, whatever it is, right? So came to believe that through practice of spirituality, again, meaning those significant relationships, it could restore us to sanity. And we're going to talk about what that practice means, right? When you think of dis-ease, right, disease, you also think disconnected, right? You're unconnected. And so earlier in the literature, you saw there was a comparison between an addict and a criminal. And there's some significant differences in the way that either of them interact in the world. Even though the result can often be the same, you can still be hurt, you can still be in prison, you can still be cut off. What happens is, let me see here. Where is that page at here? Give me 1 second. What happens is we have 4 main relationships. When we talk about spirituality, there are 4 main relationships that we have to think about. It's the relationships with others, right? Like people closest to us. It's relationships with our communities, It's a relationship with the bigger world around us, bigger than just your community. And it's the relationship that we have with ourselves. And a lot of times we don't even think about the relationship that we have with ourselves. We tend to not even include that, but it's certainly a very real thing. And if you notice, a lot of your step work requires you to deal with the self, right? You have to go inside of yourself and you have to come to terms with the type of relationship you've had with yourself. One where you're either being dishonest with yourself, completely honest with yourself, whether you're, see yourself as completely, like a piece of shit, or whether you see yourself as, your feet are too good to touch the earth that you walk on, right?
Mhm.
And then there's the place somewhere in the middle where hopefully there's a balance of humility and a balance of confidence. I can do this, but I need to remember where I've come from or what I need to do in life. And I think humility starts with one thing. If you can jump up to page 30 real quick, the relationships start with a sense of self and how you feel connected to yourself, how you feel connected to the world around you. Let me see, 31, sorry, middle of 31. Keep going down, 31. Right there. And so here you see that the relationship with yourself includes physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And scroll down just a little bit, won't there? And here are the relationships that you have with others. So those are 8 main relationships that we're working on when we're making a recovery or change plan. Right?
Yep.
Recovery is the step work we're doing. The change plan is where we're headed. So in a sense, when you start looking at step 4, you realize that part of the very simple explanation of what we're trying to do is identify where we're at, identify where we'd like to be, right? So when I say where are we at with the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual relationships with ourselves, and where are we at with our relationships with friends, family, community, self, and that larger picture of being connected to the world around you? Where are we at with those things, right? And here's a simple, like a simple example. Well, with others, I don't trust anyone, right? And then that's disconnected. You don't feel like you're a part of family and friends. You don't feel like you're a part of community. You don't feel like you're a part of the bigger world around you. Oftentimes, if we feel like that externally, we probably are struggling with feeling connected with ourselves, right? The higher your self-confidence, the better you feel about your chances of interacting in the world, right? So when you don't have trust with others, there's a part of you that doesn't trust yourself to be able to interact in the world around you. So you also, it doesn't just stay cleanly focused outwards. It tends to focus on the inside. Now, there's going to be a rebuttal here. I've been doing this for decades now. The rebuttal, oh no, I have a strong relationship with myself, right? Like I know where I'm at. The problem with that ideology is that it's flawed. So, Monte, if we talk about ego, right, and go up to the relationships with self, when you talk about ego, people have, in my opinion, if I was to write the book on how to talk about the ego, we have historically talked about your ego being too big. I say, especially on the criminality side of things, our egos are too small. Why do I say that? When you say ego, you're thinking of a persona. You're thinking of how I think and see and feel about myself in this world. And it's not that your ego is inflated. That's how we cover up our insecurities by trying to puff up,
Yeah.
I'm a big badass, I'm untouchable. But what have we discovered is underneath that is somebody who is afraid.
And a lot more vulnerable.
And that feels extremely vulnerable, and so goes to such extremes to make them seem like a hitman or, a battlefield armor plated person.
Yeah.
Like nothing can hurt me, nothing can move me. I don't need anyone, I don't need anything, right? That's because the ego feels so insignificant and so small that it has to blow itself up. You ever walk up on like a frog and it just makes itself a toad and makes itself real big, or even the cobra, right? When it expands its neck, It's trying to make itself look bigger. Certain birds, flare out their wings to make themselves look like a big animal.
Yeah.
We're doing that out of fear. We're not doing that out of a strength.
Right.
We do that out instinctually, animalistically conditioned, social conditioning, where we have to make ourselves look really big to seem intimidating and scary. And really the message is, I want you to see me as such a big threat that you leave me alone, because that's really what I prefer. I just prefer to be left alone. And that fear of that pushes us to want to be left alone comes from seeing the world through a very, tinted, messed up lens, that the world is only full of danger and fear, and therefore I need to isolate myself, and therefore, I need to send messages to people that make them think they're better off leaving me alone. And in order for me to feel like that's the only way to live, we can see from the outside looking in, that's a very damaged
viewpoint,
very damaged perspective, right? Like we can all see that. Now, having said that, it's not that the ego is too big. It's that the ego is too small. It doesn't have the mechanisms in place to feel confident in the world. So like when you overcome trust issues, like significant trust issues, there's a couple of things that you learn about life. One, you don't trust because you think the person or the people you interact will never hurt you again. That would not be human nature. People will always hurt you, right? What you believe in is your ability to endure, recover, and withstand that, right? So it's not going to have such a life-ending, life-shattering effect on you when it does happen. Phobias, right? If you don't go outside your home, right? Yeah, that's called agoraphobia, right? Like, so you just stay in the house, you're afraid of the world. When you decide to go into the world, it's not like you don't think bad things can happen out there, right? You just learn to live in such a way where you can still keep an eye out, but you can still interact in the world enough to go out there and feel like you're okay.
Right.
But we all know that bad things happen out there, right? There's, natural disasters, there's human disasters, there's accidents. It's not like we're ignorant to that, but we've resolved that, I'm capable of managing and handling that. And also part of me is hoping for the best. I know I can't control everything, but I still want to go out and enjoy. It takes a different kind of mindset to live like that than one who has like agoraphobia, who only stays in the house. It's two different mindsets. And we're never going to say that the agoraphobic person is actually just a strong person. We're going to see that they're living with something that is debilitating, right? And so when you start working on steps 1 and 2, you're really looking at these relationships that you have with yourself, right? A lot of us come to terms that we have a physical addiction. And remember, it's not just substances around here. It can be behaviors.
Yep.
Right? We have emotional addictions and issues. We have mental addictions and issues. And when I say emotional and mental addictions, believe it or not, man, some of us become devoted to our suffering. Like we see that as the way to live. Right? Think of us in prison, Monte, when we thought that the life that we were maintaining was something we need to be devoted to such a point that our image would live even if our bodies died.
Right.
That our image could be free even if our bodies were incarcerated. Right. And we were devoted to that.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. It was sometimes it was what got us through.
Now, on the spiritual side of things, when you think of it, most of the time when we say which one is disposable, we often think spirituality is disposable. Now, remember, in this sense, spirituality means you can cut yourself off from parts of yourself. So if we were thinking about a criminal, if we have to choose between the physical, emotional, and the mental, which part do you think the criminal cuts off?
Oh, the emotional.
Right. And that's the whole world says that, right? When John Doe was sentenced in court, he showed no emotions, right? Like that was cold-blooded. That was calculated, right? Like it clearly shows that that living in that lifestyle, there are no emotions, or emotions are kind of, so we're disconnected. And so now you're already living completely out of balance. You're a whole fourth of your self identity is absent from your decision making and the way you live in life, right? And so we get really focused on building our bodies up. We get really focused on learning a lot of like things that we think will help advance us. So we try to strengthen our minds, right? Like there's ways, we start reading books like The Art of War and shit like that, like trying to, when you read when you've gone to college and you go back and you read the literature that you were given when you were in the gang, you realize a lot of that's just plagiarized. It's just stolen from other folks, and it was bastardized to fit with us, right? Like shit like that. Anyway, it's not original. Let me put it that way. I'm probably offending some folks who are still in that life, but you'll come to find out it's not original
at all.
So what I'm saying is, in step 2, when we start thinking about how to practice spirituality, you have to realize that it's going to start with how you start to relate to yourself. So practice the spirituality. How do I get connected to my physical body? And so there you can see we might have to think about our sexual relationships, how I'm treating my body, what I'm using my body for. Emotionally, reconnecting to emotions, which is very hard for a lot of us. Like Monte, that's why you felt, and me too, I felt the exact same. I had the same experience you had on day 1, where you felt, like I'm a bitch because I'm having emotions about having hard times out here, even with simple things like working a phone. It's because we're not used to acknowledging emotions on any level, right? It's mad, happy, sad, glad was the basic, and most of it was just mad all the time, just having to be mad all the time. I mean, I could laugh here and there, but I'm mad. I could turn that madness back on, right? So getting in touch with our emotions. And then mental is challenging the way that we think, challenging the way that we've been navigating our thoughts and decision making. And then the spiritual piece is, how do I interact? Scroll down to the relationships with, how do I interact with myself and the world around me, right? How do I reconnect to family and friends? How do I reconnect to community? How do I reconnect to the world around me? And how do I reconnect to myself? That is what we came to believe, that through practice of spirituality could restore us to sanity. Reconnecting, right? And let's say you feel, I've never been disconnected from my family. Okay, great. What you're doing is changing the way you connect to them now. Right. So a lot of guys would get mad at me when I would challenge the idea that their idea would be that I'm a noble knight, essentially. I'm a noble person because all the crimes I've committed, all the prison time I've done was for my family. Right? I hustled like this for my family. I did all of these noble things, all these noble crimes, everything I stole, every drug I sold, every bullet I launched into the world, every bitch I cheated on, every punk I punched in the face, every lie I told, I did it all for my family.
Right.
The years and decades I spent away was all for my family. Well, I'm assuming that at some point in your change and recovery, you have to come to terms and start to realize that that's an area that you need to challenge. Because, and you know this firsthand, Monta, like I do, if you were to ask those same people you said you did it for, what they wanted from you, the things that they wanted from you are the things you never did. And here, make it simple. They wanted you to change. let's just put it right there. 98% of the families that we're talking about wanting you to change. Yeah, there's those one-offs where that family is just so, the whole family is deep in it, and that's just the way it is. But
Right.
Most of your baby mamas, your baby daddies, most of your children, most of your sisters and brothers, most of your mothers and fathers, most of your grandparents, most of your padrinos and madrinas, most of the world in your life wanted you to stop doing what you were doing and stop going to prison. And we never did. We never did it for them. It's the one thing we wouldn't do. But I would take a bullet for you, but I would, but I won't do what you actually want me to do, which is change.
Come home, be a better person, and not go back to prison.
Be an active, family member, be an active father, be a good neighbor, things like that. Now, on the other side of that, like when we think of community, a lot of times we haven't interacted with the community in a healthy way, so we don't know how to plug in, right? And if you've done a lot of time, a lot of folks can't tell the difference between a correctional guard and a supervisor at work.
Right.
Right. And so they're responding to the supervisor like they're still in prison. Right. I remember one guy, it was kind of funny. He went to work and he had a pick in his hair, and his supervisor said, "Hey, you got to take that out of your hair." That guy blew up. I mean, he went off. And I'm like, tell me what was at the bottom of that. And essentially, he felt like he was back in prison being told what to do. And those two worlds couldn't be any further apart than anything else I could imagine. Being at work as a free man in society, in the community, being able to go home and you're earning a decent wage, to pay your bills and to, reach some of your other goals in life. That is so far away from being told what to do by a correctional officer when you're in prison. Those things, I mean, I can understand how they think, but there is no similarity there.
Right.
The issue that was really at hand is the issue with authority. That I've lived my whole life not caring about any authority, discounting authority, any other authority other than mine, including God, which is why we have to think about what we're talking about when we talk about spirituality. I have turned my back on all. I have denied that authority exists other than mine. And now when you get in the world and you have to deal with everyday average authority, like having a supervisor at work, you don't know how to do it. So you have to change the way you relate to the community. You have to change the way you relate to yourself, such as, I am not all powerful. I am not all knowing. I am not all noble, right? I'm not a white knight.
Yeah.
I'm not a go-to person for wisdom yet. Like I still have to figure and sort out my own mess before. But, isn't that weird? On a side note, isn't that weird how when we get out of prison, our families think we're the go-to person for wisdom and insight? We're the last people you should be asking for anything. Right. Like, don't trust your kid with me. I barely know what I'm doing. I could share my experience, but don't think I'm trying to help you like be wise, because I'm not wise yet, Especially at step 2, I'm still struggling.
I've been a clown, and you want me to be a professor, man? Like, I ain't ready for that. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
So you can kind of see how complex this issue is, right? When we start talking about practice of spirituality, it's the practice of reconnecting with folks. With connecting with myself, my family, my friends, my community, the world, and myself, right? You have to think about that. It's incredible to know that we don't really take the time to understand how far we have fallen out of connection with the people, places, and things around us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's there, but we have to, in step 1, we're like basically acknowledging that I have messed up in all the main 8 areas of my life. All 8 main areas of my life, the 4 relationships with myself and the 4 relationships I have with others. Now, here it's with others, and you see self is in there, But self in the first circle, it's self with self. In the second one with the relationships, it's self with others. How do I sit with myself? And then in the second circle with the relationships of others is how do I sit with others as myself? Because if you remember, a lot of what we did in the past was create an identity that was all false. There was a complete like sham. It was a lie. And it was meant to cover up how fragile, frail, and vulnerable I felt. And so I have this image that everyone sees me at. So for example, Monte, 22 years after my daughter was born, her mom, Terry, her mom wrote me off, and it was a smart move. I'm not saying that like she did something wrong. It was the best thing she could have done. Right. 22 years later, she only knows me from way back when. My son's mom, different mom. 22 years later, only knows me as, right? My street name, my nickname was Joey D. Terry called me Joey. Paula called me Joey when I got out. A close cousin of mine called me Joey because that's all, that was my name. I had to tell each three of these people, I'm going by my birth name, Sammy now. I'm going by Sammy now. Sammy is the name I was born with. And not one of them gave me any shit about it.
Right.
My friends, gave me shit about it, but I didn't really care. Because what I was basically saying is I'm taking off the mask that I wore when you met me and when I knew you. And here's who I really am at the core, right? My name is Sammy. That's what I mean when I talk about how I sit with myself. I had to come to terms with I'm not Joey D. I'm Sammy. And then when I talk with others, the image that I had under the name, under the banner of Joey has to be stripped away, and I have to let people in the world around me know that like that was a false image. I'm coming before you today as this genuine person. This is who I am, right? I have failures. I have fears like anyone else. I'm just a person. I've made mistakes. I'm changing. I'm trying to just be honest with everyone, right? So when we talk about came to believe that through practice of spirituality, it could restore us to sanity, I'm essentially saying we have to come to terms that we're disconnected from all of our main relationships. And now my main objective is to reconnect in a different way, in a healthy way, with people, places, and things. And you can clearly see how this is a relationship with God for some, how it's a relationship with family and friends for others, how it's a relationship with yourself, and how it's a relationship with the world around you. How many of us felt like we didn't fit into the world? Like, I don't fit in this place. And you don't even have to be an ex-gangster to feel that way. Depression will have you feeling that way. PTSD will have you feeling that way, right? Like, and we certainly know, even on the drug addiction, alcohol addiction side of things, they feel the same way. They don't feel like they can connect. People who commit suicide ultimately don't feel like there's a place for themselves. And they're often trying to relieve us, right? Relieve us
the burden of them being there.
Right? Like it's fucking nuts.
Yeah.
We feel so disconnected, right? That we go to prison, that we choose death, that we isolate, or that we don't even we might not isolate, but we don't interact genuinely in front of others. So they never get to see who we really are. Now, remember, we talked about trust issues.
Yep.
Here's the mind blower. Here's how it's self-perpetuating. I don't trust you, Monte, but I interact with you. So when I don't trust you, I hide parts of myself from you, especially the parts that I feel are most vulnerable. And I don't want you to ever see those because I don't want you to touch them and hurt them.
Yeah.
So the person you're interacting with is a version of who I am, but not the actual blueprint of who I am. And so you can only interact with the version that I give you. You don't even know that it's just a version. So you
Right.
can only interact with the part, the one part. Right? See this thing, this is a part of a big ass machine. It's just a little part. It's a pressure gauge, and it's just one $8 tiny part of like a $400 machine that I have, right?
That's all you
And this
get.
is what I give you. It's what I give you to interact with. And so that's what you interact with. Like this is the whole thing. But the whole story is somewhere else. And now here's what I do. Here's the insanity, right? And then the word insanity is up there. We feel that we can never have meaningful connections with people. I'm not letting you have a meaningful connection with you, but I don't realize that it's me. I think because you only interact with the part of me, and I don't like the way that you interact with that part of me, I feel like I can't. There are people in the world are shitty because they can't really connect me.
Yeah.
And then we say shit like, you don't know me. Did you let me? Did you let me get to know you? Did you really let me
in? Right.
Right. It's kind of like it's like a cycle. It's self-perpetuating. You know, I have trust issues. I interact with you in those trust issues. You end up responding to those trust issues unknowingly, and then I'm like, see, validation, right? You fucked me over, and I'm out. I'm outie, right? And so and then we tell ourselves it's just better not to let anyone in. We just kind of do it to ourselves, right?
Right.
But on this spiritual side, on this recovery side, we have to rearrange the way we're thinking about that and change. So going back to page, what is it, 15?
Yeah, I believe so. Hold on.
Yeah. You know, at the top, you should be able to type in the page number if you needed to. So sanity, this is one of my favorite quotes here, right? Is a madness put to good uses. That's recovery.
Yep.
Right? We're if we believe that what we struggle with is a disease, a part of a disease, the disease leads to insanity, right? And you can't be free of the insanity. So what you do through a recovery program is you put it to good use.
What else can we do with it?
Right? You turn it into, it's what I've said before. We're using our superpowers for good instead of evil today. Right? Like you can't be free of the things that are plaguing you. You know, if you have cancer, you can turn it into something. You know, you don't have to. I mean, it's a disease. We're going to die from it more than likely if you have cancer. You know, but if we get it treated, so that's just a technical side. But what do some people do with cancer? They turn it into running marathons and raising funds and public awareness. They set up scholarships. You can turn the thing that has plagued you into something that brings life to others and to ourselves, right? Now, having said all of that, where it gets a little personal for folks is having to pick where to start, right? And a lot of times we just don't know where to start, especially at step 1, 2, and 3. We're just lost. We're unsure. You know, I'm so fucked up, I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah. And
I think, you know, not trying to minimize this, but the answer is start anywhere. Pick one. Throw a dart at it, write it on the wall, and throw a marker at it, whatever. Just the point is to get started wherever you can, wherever, and pick easy, low-hanging fruit because you need some successes early on. You don't got to take on the most complex relationships. So let's say you've been dogging your body out, right? So you're trying to stay clean and sober. Or let's say your mental health is causing problems. You know, you set up your appointment to go see someone to start dealing with that, right? Your heart is hurting, right? And so you have to go on a journey to figure out how to heal that. You feel that you don't have any connections here. It might be as simple as saying hello to someone just trying to connect with the world and knowing that they might not say hi back or they might say hi back. You know, I was at the gas station up here when I first moved here, and I said hello to a random guy at a gas pump, and I said, "How are you?" And he said, "Well, I still woke up early today." He said, "I still woke up ugly today, so there's that." Right? And I'm like, we're twins. Me too.
Yeah.
Like, just connect real quick. It doesn't have to be going to find your lost long family member from 40 years ago. It can be simple things. It should be low hanging fruit. It could be saying hello, smiling at a stranger, making small talk with your waitress, asking the barista at Starbucks how she's doing, how he's doing, right? Whatever it can be. It doesn't have to be a huge act. It will get there. Those bigger acts will come. It will get there. Now, by now, we've accepted that our lives were uncontrolled and unmanageable. We're out of control and unmanageable. We had lost clarity. We're starting to feel the weight of how wrong we've been. This gets heavy, right? It's a heavy lift here. As we release our grip, it says right here, as we release our grip on insanity during that moment of clarity, right? Like we had a moment where we realized I've got to do something about my problems. We start to imagine an alternate life rooted in reality, compassion, and empathy. Reality, compassion, and empathy. Remember, in all 8 relationships, with ourselves, with our minds, with our emotions, with our family and friends and our communities and the world around us, right? You're going to judge yourself and others harshly. It kills me how many guys get out, and I'm directing this at the men because there's been more men that do this than anyone else, right? In my practice. It kills me how many men go to prison for 20 years and hold grudges against family and friends who didn't last the 20 years with them.
Yeah.
Right. And they come out, whether it's like they have resentments with these folks, and it's like, that's a natural consequence, unfortunately, because of the things that we did, and even with the ones who stayed, there was still like ungratefulness on the exit side, right? Because they were like, well, they could have done more. They should have done more. I remember when my sister sent me a $5 money order, I wrote her back and cussed her out and was like, you could have kept that shit. That shit ain't gonna do shit for me. Dude, when I got out and I went to go see her house, my sister was living in utter poverty. Utter fucking poverty.
Yeah,
in Milwaukee.
$5 she had.
And then I realized, like, holy shit, I just shit on her. So then she sent me 20, which made it like, here I am looking at how she's living. And I'm like, holy fuck, man. How wrong could I have been? Right? How ungrateful could I have been? You've been gone for 5, 7, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever. And all of a sudden it's your house, your car, your bitch. And it's like, wait a minute. Somebody else built this for you and is sharing it with you, right? So when we think about how to process reality, we have to use the filter of compassion and empathy, right? And gratitude for the littlest things. And even if someone couldn't manage to live with you all those years, like to stay with you actively all those years, that's not a fault of a weak person.
Right.
It's what we put them through was too hard for them to endure. Like, people have limits, and people have lives to live.
Yeah, that point there really touches me, because I remember being in prison thinking, why can't they just write me a letter? Where's my letter? Where are my pictures? Whatever. And I would talk to them on the phone regularly, some of my friends and family, and they'd be like, man, I'm sorry, it's just been really busy. And in prison, busy meant you ran around for a few hours a day, then you went back to your cell and you wrote letters for 5 hours, right? Like, You got time at the end of the day. And then I came home. I came home and I entered the real world and I understood because there's so many people in prison that I genuinely cared about as human beings, right? That was my bro. I love you, man. I'll see you on the outside, whatever it is. I'll write you once I touch down, right? And I got home and it was, man, sometimes it was hard to even return emails because they can email now. I'll get an email, be like, oh, yeah, I'll message him at the end of the day. End of the day, I'm falling apart from a whole day of life and then laying down and passing out, right? Like, and never once did I understand that when I was gone and when I came home, being able to realize what they had to go through on top of visiting me, sending me money here or there, making sure they had their phone on so I could call them, right? All that stuff meant so much more to me after I came home and had to do it, right? I didn't get it. I didn't get that because they didn't write me every day. Didn't mean they didn't love me, right? Because I didn't get pictures and postcards and this or that week by week by week all the time from everybody, right? It had nothing to do with love. I was one of those guys who came home with the resentment towards some of my family and some of my friends. And then after I got to see what they had to go through, same as you, right? Like it was like, damn, man, how could I have been so selfish? How could I have been so self-centered? Like they're out there and they did exactly what you said. Something would happen. I just come home from prison a week before. Some crisis would happen, and they would call me, Monte, what should we do? Like, how the fuck do I know, bro? Like, the guards would have told me what to do 6 weeks ago, right? Just 10 days ago, the guards would have told me what to do in this situation, and now you're asking me what to do. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Yeah, bro. Getting those understandings, realizing that was mind opening and spiritual for me, right?
And it's important to recognize that because we're talking about principles, right? Morals, rules, ethics. We make the mistake of assuming that people know what those are and what they should be. And there's so many of them that it's a you have so many to pick from, it's unlimited, right? But where we start talking about in step 2 is hope, having some hope, because we typically are coming from a hopeless place by the time we get to the table. Hope in ourselves, hope in others, hope in the world. Trust, forgiveness, reconciliation, the idea that redemption is real. When we realize that the place where we were living in isn't suitable for us, we also at the same time should realize it's not okay to take people there with us. So we have to not drag people through the shit. That's why you can't lean on your family, friends, and others for your recovery process. While they want to hold your coat, they're not really meant to be the expert. So I've said this before. If you have a toothache, you go to a dentist. If if you don't know how to work on cars and your car breaks down, you go to a mechanic, or you call your best friend who is a mechanic and he walks you through over the phone on what to do. Right?
Yeah.
You go to a specialist, right? So you need to go to the specialist when it comes to your change in your recovery. And that's why we created Formers, because a lot of times, these guys are like, no, my girl's got me, my mom's got me. But while they love you, they've also been living with you, which means there are some probably, and no disrespect to anyone, there's some broken and or toxic traits in the relationship that naturally occur when you live with someone who has been so fucked up for so long, right? And if they could have helped you by now, they would have helped you by now. And it's not that their advice wasn't great, it's that we weren't great at taking their advice, right? They might have told us the gold star way to do something, but we just didn't take it.
Yeah.
I remember telling Violetta, my oldest friend, like, you're weak, you're crazy, you're a sheep, you're asleep, you're sleepwalking. And and now I have to eat all those words.
Yeah.
When I realized, like, she was always telling me what I needed to do, but I never respected where it was coming from.
Yeah.
Now,
we knew it all, bro.
essentially what we're going to do, and I'm at the last paragraph of step 2 at this point. There's a lot to read there, but you can go to the last paragraph. Oh, too, is that too far? There you go, right there. When we change, roll it up a little bit. There you go. When we change the narrative, and that is not easy. Monta, I want you to stop thinking about life the way you think about it right now. Like, that's damn near impossible. But that's why we do it in steps. That's why we introduce, like in the first step, we're introducing hopelessness. Like that, we're saying, we know that you're hopeless. Do you know that it's hopeless to live this way? And do you believe that you've lost control and that things are unmanageable, right? It's a big ask. We're saying, hey, it's not working, isn't it? What you're doing isn't working. Can you at least acknowledge that? You ever done something on a car and it wasn't working, but you did it because it was personal? Like you're gonna try to break that bolt because it's now fucking personal, and you should walk 5 feet over there and grab the torch, heat up the bolt, but you're like, nope, this is right.
It's gonna
at
do
some
what
point,
I want it to do right now. Right now.
And at some point, an hour later, you're gonna be like, I should have just did this an hour ago, and you go grab the torch, you heat the bolt up, and it right, like. At some point, we have to get to the point where we're like, this isn't working. And we're saying, so that's step 1. That's all we're asking of you. Just acknowledge that what you're doing isn't working. And step 2 says that we're going to need a little help. And the way I'm going to get that help is if I can start connecting with myself and the world around me differently. We're just saying you got to do some things different. So step 1, hey, that's not working. Yeah, I know. Step 2, we're saying you got to do things differently. And we're hoping in step 2, you get to the point where like, yeah, I know. Like, you're right. I do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that simple. And we're saying the best way to do that is by trying to, expanding your network, switching your network up a little bit, plugging in with your network, because you're going to get cues from your network and you're going to start to hear things that help change the way you do things. Now, when I was in treatment, my social worker was saying stupid ass shit like, try different foods. You'd be surprised what that does for you. Try different music. You'd be surprised what that does for you. And I'm like, this is the dumb. I'm trying to stop killing folks, and I'm trying to change my whole fucking. This is the advice. But you know what I do today?
You want me to eat a papaya?
Whatever that is, right?
Fuck.
Today, that shit makes so much sense.
Yeah,
it makes so much sense, right?
In a huge change, and we couldn't see the picture of the fact that because I had the similar experience in CGIP, right? Like, and in my AODA 5B, whatever it was, cognitive based crap, they would do things like that, right? Oh, well, have you thought about eating this, or have you thought about talking about this? And it was just little minor things, and I'm looking at them like, fuck, man, I'm doing 30 years in prison because I can't control myself, and you want me to do what? Like, draw a happy face on the top of my paper? Like, fuck you and your happy face. Stop me from hurting others. You know what I mean? Like, fucking A. But it was just that first beginning, like not even a step, but an inching of my foot forward, right? Like, it was just pushing my foot forward enough that I've moved it so that I can push my other foot forward enough so that I made progress, right? And that's what I do now. Like when I get mired, bro, and I'm gonna say it just like that. When I get mired in my own self-misery, right? I don't try to walk. I don't try to crawl. I just inch my foot just the most minuscule amount forward so that my other foot is forced to inch its way forward too. Sometimes I go backwards, but I push and I push and I push. And it's those little things, man. Them itty bitty little steps that I have to do. Because I'm a pendejo and I'm okay with that.
You know, it's what we're basically, let's go down to page 81 for me.
81.
Keep going. I'm going to the 12 gifts. Yeah, I think I'm working on a version I'm working on, so I might have not pulled up the right one. We're looking at the 12 gifts of 12 steps.
Oh, let's roll a supporter.
Keep going. Oh, you don't have the gifts?
Nope.
It should be right after 12 wisdoms.
Ooh, I might have an older version in this. Pillars. Traditions. The pillars. I might have pulled up an older.
There you go. There you go.
There. Bam.
What page is yours on?
Mine is on 79.
Okay.
So I'll have to update my file.
Yeah, I'll make sure. So you should be on page 80 on this one, but this one's, I think I'm working on this one. I'm adding some questions, so this is why you don't have this one. So when we talk about spiritual principles, right? These gifts are part of those spiritual principles we're talking about, right? A desire to live, coming out of hopelessness, right? Like you want to live. That's what rock bottom feels like. Rock bottom is like hopelessness, and in that despair, we start to have a moment of clarity that says, I actually want to live. I don't want to die. What can I do? You know, that desire, man, that's like instinctual. It's pushing you, so if any listeners on the call right now are like, I'm at rock bottom, there will be a moment when you realize, but I want to live. You just don't have the momentum, but you feel like I want to change. Like I got to get out of this hole, right? Remember we talked about mistrust, doubt. You exchange that for certainty. Fear for courage. Now notice it doesn't say a lack of fear. We just develop courage in the face of fear.
Right.
Instead of hating ourselves, we start to respect ourselves. That's why we got to have some easy wins in the beginning. Things that are not, and by easy, I don't mean easy. I mean the lowest hanging fruit. If you got a 100-foot tree and the lowest branch is 20 feet, it ain't going to be easy to get it, but it's going to be the easiest one of all of them to get. So you want to go after that. There, look at number 6, right out of step 2, right? You're going to start to feel connected. And remember, those spiritual relationships are those 8 relationships that we talked about earlier. You're going to start healing wounds instead of having festering wounds, right? The wounds that have been nagging you, right? The mistrust, the loneliness, the resentments, all that shit that eats away at you every day, right? With yourself and others. That's why forgiveness and reconciliation are major points and formers, because we hate ourselves as much as we hate others. Right. And you might not believe that, but the only reason you would put yourself through such a hard life is because you have this contempt. You don't feel worthy, right? You don't feel worthy to manage yourself and your life differently.
Absolutely.
Belonging versus loneliness, right? You now that's that bigger window of spirituality where how do I belong in the world around me? How do I live and interact? You start to feel like you have direction in life versus just living a purposeless existence, right? You're not just, there have been days, you know, when you get out of prison, you see guys still standing on the corner that were standing on that corner 20 years ago, in essentially the same outfit, doing the same thing every fucking day. You know, there's no purpose in that. There's no drive in that. They still don't have a license. They still don't have a car. They still live in their grandma's little front porch room.
Yep.
There's no purpose in it. And we're not talking about kids. We're talking about adults doing that shit.
And I told you, bro, 18 years in prison, came home, went to Pickensavon Rapids, and there were still homies from when I left at the fucking high school, 38 years old, 40 years old at the high school, waiting to pick up the homies, right? Like, I got to pick up the young homies, bro. Like, what are you talking about? You're 38 years old, bro. Like, you don't have no homies here. Like, we're all dead or in prison. Like, move on. Yeah.
And then you can see the past means something different as well as the future. You know, and even though we're not talking about forgiveness today, this statement comes from the philosophy that I'm creating, that I'm pushing about forgiveness, right? Forgiveness has less to do with the past and more to do with the future. That's that TikTok or that Instagram you shared the other day, where I'm talking about, like, you know, we think that forgiveness is about going in the past and fixing all that shit. I'm saying that forgiveness allows you to walk through the door your hand has been on all this time into a better life. You just got to choose which room you want to stand in. You don't have to do anything about the room. Do you want to stand in the room called the past, or would you choose to stand in a room called the future? Now, think about this one thing. Me and you got all these issues with people who have fucked us over in the past. All I'm saying is we can choose to stand in that room, or without resolving a damn thing, in essence, not waiting to resolve anything. I'll put it that way, right? Where I'm not waiting for anything to get fixed.
Nope.
It needs fixing, but I don't have to wait for it to be fixed to open the door my hand has been on all this time. I can either choose to stand in the room in the past, or I can choose to stand in the room in the future. Which one would you choose? And some people I know are going to say, no, I got to make sure this shit gets rectified before I move on.
And we ain't even got the tools to rectify them, right? Like, the tools are sitting in the next room, and we're standing there like, I got to fix this before I go, right? The fire extinguisher.
It's like hanging on to it's like hanging on to your 300.
What 300? I don't have a 300, bro.
Right. But how long did it take you to get there, right? Like, it's like hanging on to it. For what reason?
Because
and then you realize that the value that it had changed over time to you, because you were assigning value to it that wouldn't let you let it go. And then you had to reassign the value that it had so that it could go. And you're essentially saying, I could use this space in my life.
Yeah.
Right? I need this space in my life for something else. And so that's the whole idea around a new and meaningful understanding of the past and the future. A lot of us think, and a lot of our listeners we know have mom and dad issues, have significant other issues, have been victims of unspeakable shit.
Yeah.
And they feel like before they can move on, they're almost waiting for shit to just resolve itself. And some stuff, unfortunately, it's a bitter pill to swallow, has no resolution.
Right.
What can I do about the shit my mom did to me or my brother? What can I do about it, man? Honestly, what can she do about it 50 years later? Like, why am I in that room waiting? I'm still waiting. And what could I have been doing if I had been standing in a different room? We don't want to go down that rabbit hole, because that's when you start getting even more sad. Like, I've wasted all this time for nothing. Well, not necessarily. I'm just being facetious here. I know it's something. But now, going on to 11, forgiveness, reconciliation, and ultimately redemption These are spiritual principles. I've written about it. It's in this literature. I wish it made sense to put it at the front of the book, because I think people should just start there. Just read this. Just read it. You don't have to do anything. Just read it, because it introduces so many ideas about what we need to get to step one.
So I want to talk to you about this real quick. When we talk about reconciliation, could you clarify that, right? Because I don't want people to walk away saying we should reconcile with our abusers or our attackers. I want you to explain to them, because I understand what you mean when we talk about forgiveness, reconciliation, and redemption, right? That's at the core of what I do. Yesterday we were talking, and somebody said, you've done so much good, Monte. Why? And I was like, all I want is that when I die, I have zeroed out the pain that I've caused. I don't care. I don't care if I get ahead. I don't care if I create more good in the world than I have bad, as long as I can zero out. If I can create more good than I've done bad through my lifetime, then I'm fucking winning, right? But I'll take the baseline to reconcile for what I've done to get to zero, right? Like for me, that's the core of what I do, right? Like I just want to zero out the harm that I've caused. Once I've zeroed out the harm that I've caused, everything else is icing, right? Let me just make the cake real quick. And I got to eat this shit sandwich. I've got a lot of bread and a lot of mayonnaise, but it's still a shit sandwich, right? And I got to take my daily bite. Right? Let me take 2 today. Right? So I want you to explain to people what you were feeling and thinking when you talked about forgiveness, reconciliation, and redemption, and what that means.
So I have a very simple explanation, but I've written quite a bit about this in the literature.
I know. I've read it a lot.
Forgiveness is about what's been done to me. What have I experienced? How have I been hurt and victimized in life? That's one piece. So I'm going to forgive the things that have been done to me. I'm going to work on that, right? Reconciliation are the things I have done to others. What have I done to hurt others? And so through my acts in life, directly and indirectly, and sometimes it's better to do things indirectly because of the harm it might cause if you show up unannounced, right? Is your intention to address the things that you have done to others in some way, shape, or form. In fact, holding these meetings every week is a part of reconciliation. Redemption is like remember that world connection I talked about in the relationships? It's when the world gives you a second chance and oftentimes forgives you for what you've done through that second chance. So what is redemption? When you finally get a job despite your criminal history, right? That would be a form of redemption. When they will allow you to rent a home or buy a home with your past, right? When you get pardons, when your mom says you can come over this year for Christmas, when your neighbors know your past but choose not to judge you for that, right? These are things that you don't necessarily deserve. And I have to talk about this other part, because in the very beginning of the show, what we were really talking about is our sense of entitlement to things while in prison and after we get out. Mm-hmm. I feel entitled to visits, to money orders, to you picking up my phone calls. I feel entitled to the house and the kids and the cars when I get out. I feel entitled to a job when I apply for one. Shit like that, right? We have to overcome that sense of entitlement that somebody owes me. And you remember, I've said these words to you, Monte, from day one. You will have to take 10,000 no's to get one yes. But if you feel entitled and more, if you feel entitled, you're never going to survive those 10,000 reps.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get so frustrated because you think the world owes you something. Here's what we say. I did my time. You know what? You're right. You did. However, what you fail to acknowledge is that on the receipt of what you owe, doing your time is only one item out of 100. So we can check that off the list. You did that, but now you got to do these 99 other things as a part of the price to pay for what you've done,
Pay your
including
taxes, motherfucker. Pay your taxes.
including eating your teaspoon of shit every day that we've been eating, every day that you've been locked up. In addition to that teaspoon, working through the pile of shit that's over here that of the teaspoons you never ate that have accumulated to tonnage over here. You also got to eat some of that up every day so that you can work through it. That's a part of the redemption, right? And then you got to pay tax, like you were saying. Like we're not even at tax yet. The
Right.
taxes, but if you feel entitled, you won't allow yourself to get to redemption because you're going to feel the world owed it to you faster. Your redemption actually starts at the day you were sentenced, right? If you weren't given the death penalty or life, right? If they gave you an out date, they were saying, we're hoping that by this time you will have learned enough to make a change, right? And so, but we don't really see it that way. We tend to see it like, I did my time, not that I was given, you had to let me go versus, I'm out here and I have another chance to do something, right? And so I hope that really is a very simple explanation. Forgiveness, what's been done to me that I need to resolve, reconciliation, what I've done to others that I need to work towards resolving. And remember, it's not an end date. It becomes a value, a principle.
Absolutely.
I've been out of prison X amount of years. I've helped tens of thousands of people. I'm not saying my debt is paid. I'm saying you just have to keep doing it. It's a part of what you owe. It doesn't have to be the only motivation you have to do good things, but it's to certainly be on our minds. Service work, in my opinion, is a part of reconciliation.
Absolutely.
And then redemption is what the world chooses to do with you and your past in a forgiving way. And you're not entitled to that. It should always be considered a gift. Now, you need to go read Pillars because those really spell it out much more in detail. Number 12, freedom and intimacy in all of our 4 main relationships. This is what we believe will ultimately happen. You'll have balance in those 4 relationships with yourself. You'll have balance with yourself and your peers, your family, your friends, your community, and the world around you, the bigger world around you. You'll know while you might just be a cog in a wheel, you'll know that your position in the world matters. And you feel like you have a sense of purpose in the world. And so you contribute to the world, right? And again, these aren't necessarily grand gestures. I've been fortunate where I'm able to have an international impact in my life around the world, right? But recognizing, like, for example, when you raise your children and you prepare them for the world and to do good in the world around you, that's a part of that bigger connection. I remember, I don't know if I ever told you this story, Monte. There was a woman in Racine. I was walking my dog by the lake one day near Park Avenue, by the old hospital. And I saw a woman standing in the water. And something told me something was not right there. And I just blurted out. I wasn't even thinking. This could have been so wrong. I was like, it's not worth it. Come back this way. And she just turned around, looked at me, started crying, and I think was kind of like, whatever was going on. What I found out later was that she was going to kill herself. She was thinking about killing herself. And I just had that feeling. I didn't even know this woman. We ended up becoming friends later after that. And she struggled with depression long after that, right? Now, in my opinion, that's an example of how you connect with the world. And if I'm not saying I can sit back and rest on my ass now for the rest of my life because I did that good deed, but that's how we impact the world around us.
Right.
We have a sense of purpose, right? And you're always looking to live that out. And so ultimately, step 2, when we start talking about that, it ultimately leads to all of these gifts that we're talking about, things that you will benefit as a result of the work that you continue to do through the steps. So in essence, step 2.
Hey, that was a good synopsis. We could go on for step by step. And I want you guys to know, I love you guys. You know it. We talk all the time, all of us. We could go on for years on each step, talking and expanding. So today was a quick synopsis of step 2. You spend the rest of your life working on each one of the steps, which is what we do. So we're going to wrap up today. Thanks, Sammy. I appreciate you coming on, and as always, bro, I appreciate what you do. But you guys, the more we do this stuff, the more we talk, the more we sit down and interact, the more that we share with each other, ourselves, our cores. Sometimes I don't know if some people understand what's going on in the transaction that we're working in right now, right? This is a transaction, and Sammy is exposing his life and his experiences. I'm exposing my life and my experiences with you, and you're sharing yours with us. And so that's a huge amount of trust, and we're doing it on a public forum for those of you who don't trust anybody and hate the world or think you do. Just so you know, if you're on here, you're completing that transaction in public. Like, this is a public forum. Everybody sees this. Anybody sees this. We've done it together. So I love you guys, and I appreciate what you do. We'll be back here next week. Unless, Sammy, I have to go out to Cali to pick up Danica. I'm going to be on the road coming back for a week because I'm going to fly there, drive back. If I am, I'll let you know. Yeah, we'll go from there, you guys. Next week, we'll do a quick synopsis of step 3. Again, if you want to watch these videos, there's an easier way than sorting through my page. You can go to Our Community, Our Responsibility, Racine. You'll see all of our videos there. They're dated so that you can go back and backtrack. Last week, we had a quick synopsis of 1. This week, we did a quick synopsis of 2. And we'll work our way back up to where we left off, which was step 6. We'll do a couple quick synopses of all the steps to catch people up, and then we'll get right back into step 6, push forward with that, and go from there. So I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Hermano, muchas gracias por todos. I love you, bro. I appreciate all you do for us, man.
Peace out.
All right, you guys, next week, Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m. I got some editing to do here. I'll probably be in the studio for another half hour or so, which is really just my bedroom. But I think I have figured out why we're having so many problems with our commentary. Seeing your comments, I have to actually, that's why you guys will notice me sitting on this side for quite a bit. We're not getting connection between my streaming service and our commentary. So I think I figured it out. Hopefully next week it'll go better. I love you guys. We'll talk to you soon.